of the governor of Samburu. But look at the Constitution, and this is the loophole that persons of bad character who are known not to be in compliance with the ethical requirements of the Constitution do. I mean, they exploit. Article 99.3, after listing all those ethical, moral, and educational requirements, 99.3 for Senate and National Assembly says that it gives protection to, quote unquote, the criminal, that as long as he has not exhausted all the available appeal mechanisms, he is safe to contest. For MCS, it's Article 193.3. So this is what dirty, in quotes, candidates have used, citing the Constitution and saying, look, we had a long battle with one of the candidates, aspirants. Fortunately, we succeeded in 2022. The Honorable, allow me to cite a name, the Honorable Mike Mbuvi's uncle. And we fought that battle. A total of 16 cases that he filed. He filed the last one on the 8th of August, a day to elections in Mombasa. That one we celebrate, we blocked him on account that he had been impeached and therefore not qualified to contest. But you can see how vicious that battle was. Very many succeeded. Very many, including convicts, as long as you can demonstrate that you have filed an appeal. And you know, there is one in prison right now. He contested and won. Yet, he had a sentence on his head, isn't it? He contested. We cleared him because he had an appeal in the court, in the High Court. So, Prof, those would be my comments. Parliament needs to do its work, yeah, and provide for a certificate of clearance to be issued by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, not this routine self-declaration form. Thank you.
Any response from the panel?
Any response? Yes. I think they are saying it's my baby. I hope I've addressed it sufficiently. Thank you, Prof.
So I want to find out, our elections are not about sovereignty of the people. We have an elections where we put so many barriers. And therefore, when you have an electoral body that participates in justifying those barriers to stop citizens from voting, I have a problem with that. For example, if we say that it is a democratic right, and we then start focusing on the process, and we know what the process is. You have to get an ID card, you know. Everything that is supposed to enable and prepare Kenyans to be able to vote is made so difficult that even on the day when I'm voting, I am told that, oh, biometric, Sioni, these are the things, Sioni, you step aside, wash your hands, do whatever, do whatever. We don't have a system where we go out of our way to make sure that all those Kenyans vote. And so when we start talking about process, we confine our process to just very little. Are you in the voters register? Do you have an ID card? Are you in the biometric? Whereas I think as an institution, if our responsibility is to make sure that every single Kenyan must vote, then how do you engage in the process of making sure, one, that people are actually able to get their ID cards? Two, that you make sure that people who do not have birth certificates don't. The idea that IEBC is only supposed to participate in events We are releasing a voters register, that's an event. We have cleaned the voters register, that is an event. That for me is not what elections are about. It has got to be about how we make sure that we prepare every single citizen. And on the day when they get there, we make sure that they vote. We don't start creating. And when we talk about the law, we use the law so much when we do not want to do the hard work. We use the law to be able to stop people to participate. So we say, oh, but the law says that you must have an ID card. Well, the law also says that you must be able to get it easily. And if you're not getting it easily, how does your institution work towards ensuring that that's done? That's one, too. For me, this, because you talked about this elections, 2022. And mentioned that Venezuela person. And I asked myself, there was so much more. I specifically remember that lady talking about Form 34A, Book 2. And it was never, ever, ever talked about. And the question was, why did we use 2 books? And we never talked about that. I mean, I'm just saying that because you used the Venezuela as opposed to talking about the whole conversation around that particular thing. So we have been picky about what we want to remember about, you know, how this election was done. And I think for me, and I remember, you know, Prof talking about this is one election where we haven't talked about it. I think we need to talk about it because this is one of the elections where we came out of our way to humiliate and indignify people. And I think we need to restore the sort of civility, and civility in that conversation also in court is so important, and I think that was missed. The second bit for me is this conversation is very exciting, but perhaps one of the questions one asks is, how does the university also, given the circumstances of how the petition was done, how does Follap also start engaging in a conversation around the right of reply? And the right of reply here is every single petitioner who presented, when do we get and give them an opportunity to be able to literally say what it is that they have? Because we know that there isn't enough time for people to talk about, but we also know that in our ruling, we didn't see much of the evidence that was, you know, captured. It wasn't presented. And of course, for me, finally, and this will go to Budali. That's for you. So when we talk about electoral justice, how does the electoral justice that you represent be more about people and less about the technical? How does endless represent all those barriers that are put in place right from the beginning? How do we make sure that if I apply for an ID card, I'm able to get my ID card in a month? How does your institution become the spokesperson for the people and less about the challenges that we have, whether we release the voters register on time, you know, that whole process, because those are completely different things. And generally, citizens never have somebody who's able to represent their issues in a way that we protect them. Thanks.
Thank you. The documents you're talking about are basic rights for our citizens. And we do get this kind of clients over and over again. As the National Legal Aid Service, the partnership that we have is what we are using to aid our clients in achieving these documents. For instance, like birth certificates. We do a lot of communication with the Children's Department. We deal with the Registrar of Persons. We even deal with those who are looking for death certificates in order to use them for a claim that they have on their deceased relatives. So as a National Legal Aid Service, we are linking up with other government departments in order to get documents that are required by our clients. In most cases, I can assure you, we do get these documents. There are delays, yes, but we do get the documents. whenever our clients are able to bring the supportive documents. We even go as far as drafting the affidavits for them where required, and we do not charge for our services. So please spread the word. National Legal Aid Service is assisting clients in getting some of these basic documents that they require for them to seek services within government institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty, for the questions and the comment. I want to avoid relitigating the presidential election petition. I want to avoid. But I agree with you that elections need to be simple, they need to be accurate, they need to be transparent. The Constitution has set that threshold, and indeed the Elections Act has also set the threshold for conduct of elections. The IEBC engages stakeholders. We have the political parties, we have the civil society, we have faith-based organizations in interrogating legislation. But some of these pieces of legislation do not originate from IEBC. For instance, in the year 2016, there was the bipartisan committee that was set up, chaired by Honorable Kiraitu and Honorable Orengo, that came up with what we are now calling overprescription. You know, when you overprescribe, you are creating roadblocks. You are making it difficult for the common voter to exercise his political right. All those qualifications you are talking about, they are in the law, and they originated from that bipartisan committee and parliament. On the time frame within which a presidential election petition should be heard and determined, 14 days, I agree. It is a brief, very brief period that cannot enable all persons access justice, all petitioners. But there are those who argue, on the flip side, that the country at that particular time is full of anxiety. People are waiting to know whether the president-elect is going to be cleared by the court. So people have advanced this reasoning that a presidential election petition should be heard. In fact, there are people who even say 7 days. That prolonged period causes unnecessary anxiety, and anything can happen in between. The judiciary, in the period ahead of the 2017 general election, not 2017, I think, yeah, 2017, the Judiciary Committee on Elections came up with a proposal to have this time enlarged to 30 days, but it did not see the light of the day. I was also surprised when interlocutory applications were made in the presidential election petition, and I expected that parties would have an opportunity the next day after filing, the next day, in order to canvass those interlocutory applications. The Supreme Court delivered rulings that were then shared at 3 a.m., you recall. So there was no public submissions on those interlocutory applications. And I also felt that they needed to have afforded at least the litigants time, all of them, to submit on those interlocutory applications. But they say they were rushing against time, because if they didn't do that, then there would be limited time to hear the petitions proper. Thank you.
I didn't have any question directly addressed to me, but Betty, I thought I should just react to your concerns about the fact that citizens, there seem to be so many barriers that make it difficult for citizens to engage in the electoral process. And we've said it's a long process, and as you've said, a citizen might not be able to vote because they don't have various documents, birth certificates, IDs, etc. And you then asked Flora what her views were. And I was thinking that I think it's very clear where the duty lies to make sure that certain documents are available. So for instance, when it's birth certificates, that's the Registrar of Persons, Registrar of Births, and I think they're all together now, IDs, the Registrar of Persons, etc. And I think the idea, what is important is to make sure that these state agencies that have a duty to make these documents available are continuously put under pressure to do so, because that is a service that they should deliver to the citizen. And therefore, I throw the gauntlet back at you and ask, what is civil society doing to play that oversight role, make them accountable, hold them accountable, report them to the Commission on Administrative Justice that has a constitutional body that has responsibility for making sure that maladministration, and that is what it is, maladministration is addressed. Raise it with your MP, who has a representative role in Parliament, has a legislative role, etc. I think, and that's why in my remarks I said it's a collective responsibility. It's not just the duty bearers. The duty bearers know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it. So who's going to hold them accountable? It has to be the citizen. And as civil society, you play a very critical role as the voice of the citizen. Of course, you have MPs as well, and that's why I say you must then also lobby your MPs, because they say they play the role as the representative of their constituents. I thought I'd just add that to the discussion.
Thank you so much. We are just about to come to the end of today's session, and you can be sure in the next 7 minutes you're going to break out for tea. And as we break out for tea, before we break out for tea, I want to call Mary Mwangi to give you just her presentation in under 7 minutes. Mary won't be here with us as from today evening, so she requested that she just shares her presentation in less than 7 minutes as we break out for tea. You must know that you're the barrier between them and their tea, their right to food.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate. I'm going to make it very short because I know we are closing the day. I'm Mary Mwangi, and I've been actively engaged with IBC on the ground. That is why when I had the IBC presentation, I've been with your guys at the constituency level, and we know what they have been going through. And we have been going through together, because I'm in the Ministry of Interior. You can see there has been a lot of accusations, counter-accusations, but there is always a good side. We were able to deliver a peaceful election. Despite everything, there is so much that we were doing, and at the end of it all, we were able to deliver an election that was devoid of any violence. Now, I'm doing a presentation on the citizen participation in nomination of candidates by political parties, and that is a case study of South Imenti, whereby the political class, we are aware that they play a very critical role to determine the kind of candidates who are elected, and the outcome of it being the candidates through the nomination process they also affect the kind of election that we are going to have. And a lot of efforts have been directed towards this process of identifying the voters. And I think we have been told the role of IEBC. I don't want to repeat that. It was in my first slide. And although we have had peaceful elections and different ones from 2013, 17, 2022 was a different kind of an election, election should be viewed as an event. It's not an event, but actually a process. And one of those events is the nomination of candidates for the political positions. So this one, the process, it affects the quality of individuals. And we saw the two biggest parties that we had the UDA and we had the Azimio coalition and other parties. We were able to see what was happening nationally during the nomination of parties. And we were able to see that the political parties have the power to act as gatekeepers. And number two, the nomination process also determined the quality of candidates that would receive now the support during the actual election period. Some of the parties used democratic means. I think we have been told what is democracy. I don't want to repeat that. Others used less participative methods, whereby a candidate would just be declared. In some cases, like in my constituency where I am, we found voters waiting for the whole day. They are told that we are coming for a nomination exercise. And then in the evening, they are told to go home and a candidate was declared elsewhere. That was what was happening on the ground. And my paper examines how the parties conduct their nomination with the aim of establishing to what extent are citizens engaged in that process? Is their voice heard? How did the parties nominate their candidates to vie for different election processes? And this one, I based it on some primary data that I got from voters. South Imenti is one of the 9 constituencies in Meru, which is a bit proactive. We saw the voting patterns for Mount Kenya region. It was very vibrant. The outcomes, people are still asking. In fact, the majority of people are still asking, what happened in Mount Kenya region this time? Why was it the way, why was this outcome? And in this, we have, I administered a few questionnaires because of limited time for some voters in 2 different wards. And we found that this is an election whereby you find a presidential candidate elected from one party, a member of National Assembly from a different party, member of county assemblies, different party. So it was actually, it changed the voting pattern, whereby previously we would see from top to bottom, would see one party elected throughout. So now, a few of questionnaires are administered, about 60 of them. We found out that 42 respondents out of 60, which was 71.2%, were male, and women rarely participate, just like even in the general election. But for this case, we had more women voters, especially for the presidential elections. But for the party nominations, it was the opposite. You find very few women disinterested, and this sample was quite diverse, especially in terms of ages. We find even the youths were, this time the youths really voted, especially for the nomination processes. But, and the majority of the respondents at 57.6, South Imenti is an elite constituency, whereby we have the literate levels even at beyond 85. So these are people who know what they're supposed to do, why they do what they do, and as I said in the morning, they were telling us, you know, we had been branded, being in the national government, you had been branded that, and I heard it from one of the key persons who spoke in the morning, that we are delivering a candidate. So, but this time the voters had made their decisions. Actually, they made their decisions, and that is the result in that. That is the result whereby the methods that were used to nominate candidates, we had 49%, which was secret ballot, which was gathered from the questionnaires. We had opinion polls at 5%. Others didn't know, as you can see. We had consensus by candidates. Some parties just agreed to deliver a candidate. And I want to go to the next slide because of time. The perceptions regarding the credibility of the nomination, we had 47% did not reflect the people's will, but 53% reflected the people's will. You would find that even if a candidate was just declared, you would hear the voters say, okay, even if it happened, that could also have been our choice. So, and that is why sometimes they went through with the candidate from the party nominations. They would still feel comfortable even electing that candidate at the general election. Please move on to the next slide. I'm just summarizing the three areas. On factors that parties considered when nominating candidates, we had gender at 1.7, bribery, there was a lot of bribery at 3.4, then connection to party elites, we had 10.2, financial positions at 10.2, and the other one is contribution to party, how much have you contributed to that party at 11.9, and the candidate's popularity, that gave, actually it was the most, the biggest respondent talked of the candidate's popularity. You can move to the next. And on conclusions, I've just rushed through the paper, I've submitted the full paper, is that the process of nominating candidates by parties, of course, is a very key determinant, because at the end of the day, it determines the quality of the entire process. And it is consequently important to ensure that the process is competitive to reflect the will of the people. That's the democracy we are talking about. And the nomination process should present the voters with competent and high-quality candidates. We've just talked about who attests to the, you know, as duty bearers, because we are all duty bearers. When the citizens lose, they are not able to attain the services. It's because of that process, all through from nomination up to the candidate that is delivered finally by the voters to the voters. So the findings of this study could have several implications, maybe to policymakers. I'm happy the IBC here, all of us duty bearers, the political scholars and political parties in the election management field. And mostly for the political parties, I think there is need to communicate in good time, and that the method that is intended to nominate the candidate. The date of the nomination was not very clear this time around, as I said, and also the venue. You could have one venue declared to be the intended venue, but another venue as the venue where the candidate was declared. Lastly, Kevin. So I think in addition, party primaries, I want to say that it is very important to do party primaries. And the registration, parties should also improve on registration of members. That is also another key issue that came up during the very last elections. The rest of the recommendations are there, but I want to go to the last statement. The Election Management Board, that is the IBC, I think there is need to do a lot of sensitization regarding the nomination exercise. That one has been missing. We saw a lot of voter education, at the election level, but not for the nomination. And that's why most people don't participate. Thank you so much.
And with that, we have come to the end of this day, and I want to thank everyone for participating. Feel free to enjoy yourself with refreshments on this side. Thank you so much. If you have any questions for Mary during the interaction time, you can consult her. Thank you so much for the participation today.
Okay, just a minute, we got some announcements. And first of all, we would like to apologize to Dr. Victoria Lihiro of the Open University of Tanzania, who has been online. She says from 2, waiting to make a presentation. We promise that tomorrow we shall fix our acts and make sure that she presents almost immediately we start the day. But over and above that, we would like to ask if any of us wishes to leave tomorrow. Kindly, you are requested by the organizers to check out of the room by 10 a.m. Sawa sawa. Asante sana. Just that, and let's enjoy our evening. Kuna chai hapa. Tafadhali karibuni chai. Pardon? Tomorrow.